Hey, Emily here. We got a big day of races at Fairgrounds, and I'm going to look at the Mineshaft, a Grade 3 race at a mile and a half on the dirt. And this is kind of an interesting race overall. You have a lot of horses here that are coming in off layoffs, and a big favorite, the number 2, that absolutely figures on class, speed figures, but have to kind of deal with the layoff. And a lot of these horses in here are coming in off a layoff. I'm going to click over to the days last. And you can kind of see recency, less than 45 days, are the 4 and the 6. Well, we saw earlier in the early scratches that the 4 is out. So only one horse in here has any type of recency. Everybody is 90 days, or greater. So what I'm going to do in this video is a little bit of handicapping, but also a little bit of technique, because we're looking at these horses coming in off layoffs, and so we really don't have form necessarily to go off of. We're looking more at pace, class, and speed. So starting with the plot here, again, we have a red plot fit that shows a fire contention. And this might change a little bit. I'll try to post after the scratches an updated plot. But there should be a mild contention and a mild speed rating here. Looking at these horses, again, we kind of have to just do a mental taking the 4 out. So you have the 1, the 6, and the 7, that, 7 kind of between the quadrant 1 and quadrant 3. And then also the number 3, kind of dive into this horse because this horse is an EP type, and using quadrant 3 and just kind of looking over the form lines on this horse being lightly raced, why he's down there, and maybe we can try to reposition that horse. You have the 8 here. Looks like he's going to get kind of a good stalking trip high above the par line, kind of like where that horse is sitting. Your favorite here, so not a terrible spot with the fire contention, but again, comes down to trip. And then Motom, who's kind of back here in quadrant 4 as well, who's a circle, but coming off the layoff and making a first start as a 4-year-old, and knowing this horse from last year, kind of having some troubled trips and things like that. So kind of an interesting horse. So we'll try to see where this horse is, because his shape on the plot may or may not be what he is today. So kind of have to dig into this. We'll get into the grid and sort of jump back and forth the plot as we try to dive through this race. I'm going to look at, I hit a few columns, as you can tell. I took away the notes and the projections and the extended comment. I'm just kind of messing around with this, and just looking at the grades. And I think the grades are underutilized, so I want to kind of focus on that and just kind of show how you can use these grades to handicap. Let's look at the number 1. I kind of have pulled up right here, and again, let's kind of look at the grades. So if we pull out, just look at the B races. We need a B to basically win. One race that was at Ellis Park, an optional claimer. Going 8 furlongs in the dirt. So it doesn't give us that much. Did crush that field, wire to wire. That's kind of where he's projected in this trip. Just want to scroll down, make sure I'm missing anything. A lot of these tracks we don't do notes for. The other thing I want to look at on this horse, because he kind of looks like, need the lead type, and then if there's any type of distance. So I'm just typing in distances greater than 8 furlongs. And aside from that one win at Delta Downs way back in 2013, seems to kind of fall short, and especially in these graded stake races. So this horse, need the lead type. Looks like he's going to have some contention in there. Class is a bit of a question. Distance a bit of a question. So, Tom Amos also has the 5 Motom, who we'll get into, but it seems like a horse is just a little bit below. Maybe he's entered for pace for the stablemate. So number 2, Eagle. This horse is a favorite on the morning line, 5-2, and clearly the class of the field. You can kind of see those B's just sort of jump off the page there. The question on this horse is layoff. There's only one other time this horse ran off a layoff, and to be fair, it was at 6 furlongs. Probably not a race this horse was was meant for. So hard to get a form line there, but he's not a horse that really runs off a layoff often. Kind of puts races back and back together. So, I mean, this horse could definitely win. We look at these, these grades and graded stake races, Bs, B pluses. Has that one B minus, but again, that was followed by, or the layoff following that race. So really, for this horse, is he cranked to win this race, and is he going to get the right trip? And those are the questions. So if you're singling this horse, that's something you have to think about. Let's look at surface distance. Just kind of see, again, just, really honest horse, kind of in tough competitions here, head loss, 2.5 lengths back. Guess if you're making the argument, maybe he's better a little bit longer, but I wouldn't really necessarily say he can't win at this distance. Has a win over the track. All this stuff you can just kind of, I'll clear this out completely. Well, let's leave it. Just looking at how he runs at fairgrounds, runs well. So, knock and trip. I would want a spread. I'd want a little bit of coverage. I like this horse overall. Again, I think the layoff and the trip is a question here. Kind of jumping through. So the number 3, this was the horse that was interesting. Just kind of reference the plot real quick because he's down here in quadrant 3. But as I scroll over, this horse is an E1, P2 type. So wins on or very close up to the pace, 2 lengths back at the furthest. And you can kind of see, I'll pull up, let's just look at the route races here. This horse really has done nothing wrong. B plus, always running mid 90s, shows up every time. This one race here, I'm going to cheat a little bit because I did look at the trip on it. This horse was completely unprepared at the start and was projected that day to be on the lead. So this horse ran incredibly well, considering the fact that he's typically an on the lead type. So the plot's taking this race into consideration, and he does have that big square. So if you kind of look at this horse being on or near the lead, and you just kind of take this square and maybe move it up a little bit, this horse could sit a nice trip. It's first time going into a graded stake race, but again, he's really done nothing wrong, and I think, he got to test him at some point. Trainer won this race last year. I was just kind of going through because I'm like, man, they don't run that many 8.5 furlong races here at the fairgrounds, so I had to go all the way back to a year just to get a reference, and that's when I noticed he won this race last year. We had a bit of a different scenario with a 4-horse field and Majestic Harbor just able to get kind of a shake loose on the lead. So different scenario, but again, trainer won the race last year. This horse, could be pointed. Not one of the the big layoffs in the field, coming in on 60 days, so a little bit of recency compared to some of the others. Kind of an interesting horse, especially if you're you're spreading in this field. Let's jump down to the number 4. I'm gonna pull that up. Oh, he's out. Makes that easy. We'll skip to the number 5, Motom. So I alluded to that, this horse sitting in quadrant 4, being a circle, making his first start as a 4-year-old. This horse was on the Triple Crown Trail last year, running in the Kentucky Derby. Kind of had some setbacks, got back on track next time out. Obviously, softer field, and then followed by another layoff. So prior to that, running in these graded stake races, aside from the trouble trip, which I'm just kind of basing off memory, he's got some class to him. B plus, B. Again, this horse, needs to have a trip, getting a jockey change, coming in as a fresh horse, as a 4-year-old. Definitely has room to improve. He's ran a couple 99 races. Won't go over speed in a second, but any improvement off that definitely makes him a player. And just kind of looking at this field, maybe that's even good enough to win here. So 5-1 on this horse. It's not a huge field. You're looking for alternatives. Case can be made for this guy. Let's look at the number 6, Dazzling Gem, and we'll kind of look at grades here. We don't have a grade for the Louisiana Derby. Arkansas Derby, grade 1 is a 3-year-old, a B- race. And then hasn't been in stake races since. Does have a couple B pluses at optional claiming, overnight stakes. So making that big class hike. Does have this big figure that was in the mud at Fairgrounds. Was going to run at the Razorback. They scratched. They're going to run in this spot. As far as trip goes, let's kind of look over at the plot. He's sitting in quadrant 1 and as a circle. I don't know if that's going to be a great trip for him there. As far as not being able to kind of make the lead and not really being able to kick. Let me move over to surface distance. See where he comes up on that. In that kind of position, I'd probably want to see a little bit more of a square, a little bit more of a finish. You know, I imagine the 1 coming back to the field and the 4 coming out. So, you know, having first run, but then having, you know, these kind of 2 classier horses sitting right there, being able to kind of outkick him when needed. And then, of course, we're projecting the 3 up here. That big square shouldn't be able to outkick that. So I'm not completely sold on that horse's trip, and have a little bit of questions as far as his class in this spot. Just the outside, we're gonna go to the number 7. Similar plot, I do believe. You know, kind of sitting, I guess, a little bit more in quadrant 3. I think he moves up on standard, and going into a pace type scenario, I know the 1's going to be out there, right, from the rail. You know, this horse is going to go and just take him as far as he can, as fast as he can. I think the 7, you know, you have the 2 who doesn't have early speed. You know, the 3 has speed but doesn't necessarily need the lead. And then this horse doesn't have any speed. So probably coming over, you know, the 6 decides to go. He could be one of the other pace setters in here, at least applying pressure to the 1 if needed. I believe, let's kind of look at this horse's running lines a little bit, see where he does his best running. Just kind of sort here. Seems like needs to be kind of right on that race. That was kind of an interesting run line there. B race, but best kind of close to the pace. I think that's probably his trip, so similar again, doesn't have that square, maybe gets first run, has enough. He does have some grit, has that speed figure back, so class is a question. We can see these B races, B+, getting his first test in graded stake races. Would probably like to see a B+ off that win. He's kind of coming back. So, again, a horse, maybe from a trip-wise, class-wise perspective, similar to the 6, just might be a little bit compromised in this spot. Going to the outside, this is the horse that looks like he could get kind of a nice trip on the plot, is the number 8, International Star. This horse, again, it's another horse that's making its first start off a layoff, 252 days. Going back to this grade 3, grade 2, this is at the Fairgrounds last year, B- in both those races. Good speed figures. This horse kind of seems like he really likes Fairgrounds. Runs a good race, should get a good trip. I think this horse is a player on a couple factors in here. Speed figure wise, you know, maybe class if you're saying anything B- in those spots. A little bit soft, but again, he's had time to mature. Mena jumps back aboard. He's definitely had success on this horse, and from the plot just could get the right kind of stalking trip. Again, 252 layoff is a bit of a question, but that horse looks definitely looks like a player. I'm gonna kind of sort. We'll go back and just kind of look at grades through this field. I was kind of looking at some different things using the grid, making sure I'm not leaving anybody out. This guy's second to filter. And just being able to see where this horse, let's even shorten this up a little bit more. Give us a good sample size here. So going back to 2016, starting to see where these horses figure. Let's do a quick kind of scan through. And then sometimes a speed figure sort. Clear out that. I like to do this just to make sure, is there anybody that I'm kind of missing, anybody I want to look over again. You know, horse we talked about, Eagle, obviously, international star from a trip standpoint. The 6, Dazzling Gem, big speed figure. It was earned in the mud, so take it with a grain of salt. It is flagged. Figure may be suspect. I think that's important. 7, he's in here again. Lead 4 is out. Motom, projecting improvement off that. Capable. And what's the other horse we're interested in? The 3 off a trip. Yeah, sitting right there in 98. So I think this is an interesting race. You know, it's one you're gonna want to look at the board. It's one if you're playing this all-stake pick 4, getting a little bit of coverage in. You know, again, I think that the favorite's likely, but I wouldn't. It's not a horse I would want to single, and playing the race, I think there could be some value there. All right, again, this video, it's a little bit of handicapping, but again, kind of more technique, one to reference when you're handicapping using Optix EQ. All right, thanks for watching.